We are Primal Paper Comics. We are Virginia's only, as far as we know, only independent comic book publisher. To my left is Justin Cristelli, who is the creator and writer of Red Knight. My name is Jeff Hewitt. I am the creator, writer, and artist of The Ends. And to my right is Forrester Redlet, who is the writer, artist, and creator of Dogs and Sailors. And we're here today to talk to you guys about what makes a good comic book story. Justin, you want to start? You want me to kind of keep going, or how do you want to do this?
Let's see. Well, we can get started. As far as what makes a good comic.
Well, who here reads comic books? Okay.
Good.
You don't read comic books.
Who are your favorite? Give me some crowd participation here. Who's your favorite? Raise your hand if your favorite comic book character is Superman. A little bit.
Okay, maybe a bad start.
How about Batman? Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, Wonder Woman.
Spider-Man, Wonder Woman. Okay.
How
Kitty
about
Pryde.
Green Lantern? Oh yeah. I don't know why that name occurred to me.
So we got a little Wolverine.
Yeah.
We got some Wolverine.
There we go.
So we see we've got, some superheroes are a little bit more liked than some other superheroes. And that's interesting to me, because Superman is probably the most famous superhero ever. But when you ask people, who's your favorite comic book character? Nobody ever says Superman. Why is that, Justin?
I guess everybody figures, well, Superman has had such a long history of being kind of the establishment character. And I guess when people feel like they want to kind of not name the most obvious character, I think he's had a cool problem over the last generation.
Well, and I hear this over and over again, when they make a Superman movie, the biggest problem with Superman is that he's so powerful. What are you going to do with him?
Yeah.
Like, if he's standing on the street corner and somebody's robbing a bank, they're not going to be robbing the bank very long. It's going to be over. It's not a very good story. And so it's hard to challenge him.
He's also the source of so many of the cliches of the genre.
Yeah, to some degree, sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point. I think they can, to some example, be unfairly pinned against him.
There's the obvious. Okay, nobody recognizes you now. I'm a totally different dude.
It was
Who the hell is this?
It was a more innocent
Get back over
time.
here!
I'm back.
Oh, okay. God.
So, like any other story, comic books are no different than really any other kind of story. And one of the exciting things that have been happening in the last 20 or 30 years is that comic books are starting to be about other things besides superheroes. But the first element of a good comic book story, I would have to say, is an interesting character.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, that's where I build all my stories off of, is the characters.
You gotta have a hook.
Yeah, you gotta have a hook, because, to be honest, there's so many different stories that have already been done over and over again. What I think is an important connector to the audience is the character. Do you care if this character makes it through this situation? Do you care how this story affects this character? Or are you just watching this puzzle come together as far as a plot? Now, some people are plot story people, but I really do feel a character is essential, frankly. I mean, look how many incarnations of Sherlock Holmes there's been.
Sure. Well, let's test this out.
Yeah.
Who can, if I say Batman, what's the first thing you think of? Bruce Wayne? Okay. What else?
Adam West.
Adam West? What do you think of the movie?
Yeah.
But what is a defining characteristic of Batman?
The loss of his family.
He lost his parents. So he's got a hook. He's got something that automatically well, this is why he does what he does. When we think of Spider-Man, we think, well, he lost his uncle.
Responsibility.
We think of Superman. Well, he lost his whole planet.
Yeah, but to me, Superman seems like, I would say he's so apple pie American, and we're not like that anymore.
always thought that I always like the.
I could do a whole panel about why Superman is still relevant.
I like your statement. I was thinking something similar. So
I've always thought that I always like the idea that he's this classic immigrant story of someone coming to America who's lost everything.
And this really brings us to the.
Yeah.
This really brings. I'm sorry.
It would be a great approach to take that approach because
Yeah.
he's not different than he might be from outer space, but he's an alien to America.
Yeah, and that's why Superman is relevant. Actually, Superman is about what we can do, especially as Americans, with power. Being one of the most wealthiest and powerful countries in the world, and that responsibility.
But that would be an angle you could weave into a story that would.
I agree. I've seen a couple of writers here and there successfully and unsuccessfully toy around with that idea, and it's always an idea that's always appealed to me.
I can't think of who said it, but someone said that he is a reflection of what he thinks humanity is.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, when he wake up, he's Superman. When he does everything, he's Superman. His mask is Clark Kent. And what he conceives humanity is being more weak, more timid, more like this. Not everybody's like that, but that's his perception of it. I can't remember who said that, but that's what he.
Yeah,
That's
Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like because that stuck with me for some reason. I just couldn't remember who said that, but I thought that was an interesting way because I never thought about it like that. Because you always think, well, Superman's the best. No, it's the other way around. Clark Kent.
So, with a comic book story, we've got a hero. We've got a character who, more often than not, is a heroic character of some sort. Even the anti-hero is somebody that you're rooting for. The protagonist. I'm going to throw out some theater terms for you. So, the protagonist of the story.
One thing with Superman, the various versions of Superman present him as a flawed character, but he doesn't have anything intrinsically built into the concept, like say Batman or Wolverine.
Oh, he lost his family.
Yeah, but
he was a baby.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He couldn't feel the loss, even though.
I think he feels that loss daily.
He's certainly perceived by the public as an unflawed character.
Yeah.
But Superman's your grandfather's superhero.
That's
To some degree, sure.
Well, I think that's a perception a lot of people have, and kids tend to rebel. So if the perception is your dad's superhero is Superman, then well, screw that guy. I'm going to be more of a Wolverine fan, or
Well, Wolverine, what's the...
Wolverine is basically almost the end.
You guys seen the art out there that I remember? Do you remember when Wolverine was cool? Neither do I. Wolverine's not cool anymore because he's everywhere. Partly he's overexposed, but he's not as popular a character as he used to be. Partly because of that. Yes.
I have a question for you because I hear you talking about the character like Superman and other characters. Now, when you do your stories, is it a takeoff on other superheroes, or do you create, or is it a continuous amount of different characters building you up? What's going on with that?
I think every creator takes a different approach. We're working with our own characters, some of whom have been influenced by other characters, certainly. But our books are very. My book is basically it's the end of the world, and all the good superheroes have disappeared, and the ones that are left are very bad at the job. Forrester's book is a film noir, 1940s, set in Norfolk, about a deputy detective.
Yeah, I don't actually have superheroes.
Yeah.
Well, then my main character is a 24-year-old who in the early 40s reads them, and he kind of idealizes. He's a character who would have grown up with like the pulp detectives and kind of with the anti-hero model of like say Humphrey Bogart, and he sees the superheroes and the comics as almost like a better vision and ideal. And so the closest thing I get to having superhero content is the fact that he wears a little S on his lapel of like a button. So I'm kind of not so much addressing superheroes themselves as much as the fanboy concept and the idea of taking inspiration from them and kind of questioning the idea of whether or not that actually works. Can you get real-world advice from fictional characters?
That is a good question because when you create your own superheroes, you do kind of like either play towards or against more famous archetypes, you know, like the Supermans, the Iron Mans, and Spider-Mans and such. You know, I've had to do that with Red Knight. I've had to be aware where you're trying, where, yeah, there's certain, like, there's Archer characters, there's, you know, Wonder Woman type characters. You have to be, you know, careful of that when you want to do that type of character. So you do wonder, like, oh, is this too much like this character? So it is something you have to be mindful of. The end in mind, because that's a good way to, like, get yourself stuck in all sorts of different directions, or come up with the most cliched ending of all. There has to be A, B, and C, essentially.
She's talking to the subject.
Yeah, the machine, yeah.
See? Conflict.
Yes.
An antagonist. A protagonist.
It's man versus machine.
And really, every comic book story in the history of comic book stories can more or less be boiled down to those three things. Everything else is kind of flavoring, it's shading. It's, you know, you can do world building, but you don't have to do world building. If I show you a picture of a guy in a cape standing on top of a building, I don't have to tell you that he flies. You just assume it. You know, that's there. Of course, do you have any examples of conflict from your own book?
Not really, because I try to avoid using specific bad guys.
Well, that's true, but you have an antagonist in the first issue.
I do, but I tend to pick antagonists more as they represent probably social ills and things rather than. I have like ethical issues with the concept of basing fiction around fighting. I don't know. It's
Well,
hard
it's
to
not
say.
necessarily, but the conflict is not necessarily violence.
Yeah, but I don't know. So I just can't word it very well. It's kind of abstract. Like even like I think something like say Desperate Housewives has a lot of conflict, but I think there's just as much like bad morals, bad view of that as in something like that as there is in something where people are shooting at each other. It's still the idea of people as opposing groups and kind of a battle for dominance. I don't really like that outlook on society. So I try to more say that there's problems, whether it's like war or prostitution or even really like natural disasters and floods, and how people overcome it. And there will be individuals who don't want, you know, the problem being overcome. So that makes them villains in a sense, but it's more like they're more misguided per se or greedy. But
Well, and it's important to note that an antagonist is not necessarily a villain. It's an opposing force. It's not even necessarily a human being. An antagonist can be a storm. It can be nature. It can be economic circumstances. I would say that the primary, for example, not a superhero book, but how many people here are familiar with American Splendor by Harvey Pekar? Not so much.
Those guys.
These guys, there we go. So Harvey Pekar wrote basically about himself. It was an autobiographical comic book that was just about everyday life. And you would think that's kind of boring, but in American Splendor, the antagonist of the book is economics. It's the fact that he has a crappy job and doesn't make a lot of money, and that provides the conflict in every aspect of his life, because every time he wants to do something, he has to find a way to afford to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not always a villain. It doesn't need to be a villain. It doesn't need to be. You know, it could be an animal. It could be a circumstance. It could be the fact that your car broke. Your car could be your antagonist.
I've even seen people reverse the whole idea of a hero and a villain, where the story follows a criminal, and the antagonist is, you know, basically a good guy trying to catch them. I've seen that a couple of times.
Sure.
In stories. I do recommend anybody working on comics to read American Splendor or watch the film. Frankly, I think that's kind of an inspiration.
Oh, I love Harvey Pekar. And if you guys haven't read the books, there's a collected anthology that came out with the movie. Paul Giamatti was in it, and it's like I think $15. Check it out.
Yeah.
Art Crumb did the illustrations for a lot of it. Who's kind of a legendary alt comic artist. But yeah, I mean, and now, do you have to write a story this way? No. I mean, certainly anything is possible. But 99.99% of the stories throughout human history, not just comic books, but films, television, theater, myths, are a protagonist, an antagonist, conflict. So if you're looking to write a story that's going to be interesting to somebody and not just, I mean, can you write a book? Can you write a book about a superhero checking his mail? Absolutely. But at some point, there's going to be some sort of conflict. He's going to get a bill that he didn't want, or a letter from his ex-girlfriend telling him that she's dating his supervillain nemesis, or something like that.
Actually, there's an example. Fantastic Four issue 11. They're opening their mail, and the Thing is like reacting to like angry criticism letters. The Yancey Street gang.
Yeah.
Writing and saying like the Thing is a sissy, and they're like mailing him a tutu.
I've even heard an expression for that is reverse escapism, where you take a fantastic character and put them in a mundane setting and see how they react. You know, like I don't know, like Addams Family movie.
Well, it's deconstruction.
Yeah, it's like it is kind of a deconstruction.
All right, let's open it up to some questions. If anybody else has a question they want to ask, yes, sir. In the Michelangelo shirt. In the Michelangelo shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. But is that like a business plan or like a portfolio that you guys like own this year? Do you guys like try to emulate like other business plans?
Let me explain to you how to. Okay, so if you are interested, some of you are probably undoubtedly here because you either want to draw for comics or write for comics. Let me explain to you the harsh, cold reality of the industry. If you are waiting for DC Comics or Marvel Comics to come knock on your door and be like, "We would really like you to write Spider-Man," you're going to die of old age before you ever do a comic. If you are knocking on their door and saying, "I really want to draw Spider-Man," you will probably die of old age before you ever get to do a comic book. If you want to do a comic book, one, do it because you love it. Do it because you can't not do it. But if you want to do it in this day and age with desktop publishing, none of us went to school for this. None of us, got permission to do it. We each decided, screw it, we're just going to do our comic book. And it's cheap enough now that we can publish the books and actually make a little bit of money doing it.
Yeah.
And, with social media, we're building a new readership every day. We're a very small company with nothing like Image or even Boom or Dynamite readership. Yes, sir.
You guys do most of your stuff in black and white, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
You know why?
It's cheap.
It's cheap.
Damn it!
If you were to get the Primal Paper gets a little bit bigger, do you think you'll switch the color eventually?
We have a couple of color books now. Vince White, who unfortunately couldn't make it here today, has a color book out. I think that Justin's doing the trade paperback of his first 3 issues in color. My book is actually designed to be a black and white book.
See, me and my buddy right here, we're in the early stages of the book. I'm designing the character.
Awesome.
Writing everything and stuff. So we're look at all the different aspects. We can do.
There are drawbacks to working in black and white. Some people don't feel that your book is real. I'm a 42-year-old man who doesn't really care what anybody thinks, so I do my book the way I want to do it. Because I'm too old to care.
Yeah, as an illustrator, right now I've converted to just do everything on the computer. I have a Wacom tablet and stuff, do everything like Sketchbook Pro and Studio 5. But when we do like pencil illustrations, we still have curvature, everything, and stuff like that. As soon as you put ink down, it flattens everything, totally changes the aspect of the picture. And then we put color back to it. It kind of brings back that roundness that you had.
No, I think that there are books that are done in black and white because the money is cheaper. It's just cheaper to do the books. My book is actually conceived as a black and white book. It is specifically meant to be a black and white book. I think that Forster's book, because he's working in kind of a film noir story, I think the black and white serves his book.
There will be a color edition.
But you don't see that all the time.
Yeah.
And you can tell that this man is a designer / artist. You know why?
You sure?
His shirt. What's that? That's the golden mean.
Golden ratio.
He's the golden mean man.
Fibonacci sequence. Yeah, that's right. It's got a lot of different.
Any other questions?
Do you find that doing black and white is easier to print digitally? I know you do all your stuff in typically small runs.
Yeah.
But you're doing offset printing, you can be able to afford like larger run of color books.
I looked at, the problem is, when you start to get into like diamond publishing numbers, you're talking about 3,000-4,000 issues, or 3,000-4,000 copies per issue, at least. I think they'll take a minimum around 2,500. At that level, it starts to get cheaper to do color. It's funny because I just started doing prints of some of my characters, and I'm going in and actually colorizing because my book is a fumetto book, if you're familiar with the term. It's photography that's made into the comic. And it's funny because I'm going in and colorizing the stuff that I desaturated that was already colored originally. So it's kind of fun. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a lot of interest in doing a color book, so I don't really think about it all that much. But yeah, I mean, anything gets cheaper as you scale up.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to run print 2,000 copies, you know, you think you'd be able to successfully move all those.
I mean, it's a tough market, and nobody wants to read a character they haven't heard. You know, there's a reason that Batman occasionally sells 50, 60, 70,000 copies, and the next, you know, you got the top 10 books, and then the next book sells, the 11th book sells 5,000, and the book after that sells 2,000. And the comic market is what it is these days. You know, the days of selling 2 million copies of an issue of a comic book probably aren't ever going to come back. As an independent, it then becomes, you know, could I make a living doing this? If I did nothing but cons all the time, because that's where I do well. When I can actually get face to face and, you know, people want to have that interaction with the artist. You know, our numbers aren't huge. Justin, you do about 600.
Something like that.
He does about 600 copies sold per issue.
Yeah, and that's not.
So then it's just a cost versus sort of situation, right, where you're trying to minimize your costs.
Well, print on demand. Yeah. Print on demand, especially. So I mean, we don't talk about business. And I don't really care, you know, because I don't care if I make money doing this because I have a decent day job. But if we want to talk about the business plan, we can talk about that a little bit.
I have a horrible day job.
Yeah, your job sucks. I'm so sorry. I work from home in my pajamas. It's great.
Yeah.
What it comes down to, I actually lose a little bit of money on my single issues. I price them at $2.99. If I sell them directly to a customer, I'm making about 80 cents. If I sell it to a store, I'm actually losing about a dime per issue. And then what happens is, as I do my, but I keep that price down low because I want it to be affordable. It's a black and white book, and it's an independent. People are more willing to take a chance on an independent book if it's $3 than if it's $4 or $5.
Yeah.
And I have a 72 issue run planned for my book. It's plotted out, beginning, middle, end. I know everything that happens. I know how the book ends. There's room for some organic growth, but I want to be able, and I'm going to finish this book. Unless I get hit by a bus, or somebody clones a Tyrannosaurus Rex and I get chomped in the middle of the...
She'll finish it.
Maybe she'll finish it. This is my daughter, everybody. She's actually dressed up as one of my characters. So something that I helped create is dressed up as something else that I created. How nerd-gastic is that?
I have a more technical question. When you print stuff out, what DPI is it? 600?
300. 300 DPI is print standard. You can actually get away with 180. But 300 is print standard.
See, when I do my stuff like in the computer, I always had 350 or 600.
Yeah, you're just wasting memory.
Good luck trying
The human
to
eye
color
can't
it.
really discern what 600 DPI
I was
looks like.
trying to do something that was like 600 DPI, and like I'll do my stroke and just like.
No.
Yeah, you'll be there all day.
So I would
You're like a
just.
Oh man.
you're like a Sun workstation.
I tried working in 600 because I thought it looked better, but it would crash every time I'd say.
And you really can't tell the difference in the print. So going from single issues, and then where I'm actually making money is going into the trade paperbacks. Because I can do a trade paperback, 120 pages. I collected the first 3 issues of my book. It's 120 pages. I sell it for $5. I pay about $2.30 per copy. So now I'm actually starting to make a little bit more money. And then you start to push into merchandising. I started doing prints. I make more money on the prints as far as the profit rate than what I make on the books. So the books serve to kind of push that merchandising. And it's not huge numbers, but you know, I'm in the black, and I'm able to do this thing that I love and not lose money on it. and I'm actually starting to make a little bit of money. And then, you know, you just keep pushing it and keep pushing it, keep doing the cons, you build a fan base. I've been doing it for about a year. I probably have about 200 readers at this point. And you know, those aren't Marvel numbers, and Diamond Publisher couldn't care less for me. But I got 200 people that read my story. That if I build them in a room,
like Hollywood, like your book, would you option it?
Hell yeah! And I'll tell you right now, if there's a Hollywood agent out there, if you'll give me a big bag of money, you can do whatever you want with my characters. Because that's the movie. I won't go see it. But
You have to split it with Matt.
yeah, well, yeah, that's my story actually. It's tricky. My comic book actually started 26 years ago as a role-playing game, superhero role-playing game called Champions, where we created characters, and so they all get listed as co-creators on the characters, although the story has changed greatly since then. So, I mean, to some degree, yeah, desktop publishing and print on demand makes this kind of this small-scale niche economics possible, where you can do this thing that you want to do. Because if you wait for someone to tell you, if I say nothing else today, please take this away. If you wait for someone to tell you that you can do what you want to do, if you wait for someone to say, you can draw a comic book, you can write a comic book, it's never going to happen. Get up and do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and read. Don't just read comic books, read everything, because that's going to funnel into what you do.
Well, being an illustrator, I get anxiety about people that see my book and stuff. You know, it's like, is this good enough? Because I'm a Google's credit.
Right.
It makes you feel better. Pretty much everybody is.
I've seen a lot of really bad indie comics. They're out there because there's no bar to entry. That is the downside to print on demand. There's nothing keeping people who maybe shouldn't be doing it from doing it. The market will tell you. But I mean, honestly, I see guys making a living doing comic book conventions, doing art, that can't draw.
Yeah, we went to a Richmond Con a few weeks ago. I went in there and I saw people with illustrations. I just thought they were horrible. There were some like 100.
But there's always somebody that likes your work. I learned this in New York City. In New York City, there's so many people there that if half of a percent of the people who are in that city like what you do, you can make a living on it. Mm-hmm. And you know,
and everybody's got a fan.
And if that's what you want to do, I mean, I'm never going to make the kind of comfortable living that I enjoy from my day job with the comic books, unless I sell the film rights, which they are available for sale.
If there's anybody here.
But I do actually. I've actually had some talks with a couple of people in the industry, and you know, you never know, something might happen. But look, Men in Black started out as an independent comic book.
Never even heard of Men in Black until the film came out, and I always
nobody read the comic.
Yeah.
What else? Give me some.
Walking Dead, Ninja Turtles.
Walking Dead was
Ninja
an
Turtles
independent
is a
comic
great
book.
example.
Ninja Turtles. Kevin Eastman and
Peter Laird.
Peter Laird ate ramen noodles for years.
Yeah. Making fun of Frank Miller, and now they're
and
bigger than Frank Miller.
Now they're rich. I mean, things are possible.
Yeah,
Is it likely? None of you need to quit your day jobs to go write comic books. Go write the comic books first, keep the day job for a little while, see how it works
What
out.
are your thoughts on the digital distribution?
It's not there yet. People like to hold books. It's coming along. We sell some digital. We have digital copies of all of our books. But the print sales are way outstripping. And that seems to be the case in the industry. I mean, that's only going to reverse as time goes on. I mean, eventually print's going to be where, digital's going to be where it's at, but it's not there
It's
yet.
like having a feeling holding it.
Yeah.
Instead of like.
I'm an old guy, so I like comic books. I like how they smell.
And my dream is to be able my work in my hand.
But, at the same side, especially as an independent distributor, because we don't use Diamond, I'm in public, so I can't actually talk about Diamond too much without getting in trouble. As an independent distributor, I'm able to sell my comic books to places I can't get it to through the digital format. Is it ideal? Would I prefer that they actually have the book? Sure, but they're getting the story. They're seeing the art. And it's interesting to me because, in my case, the art was like a means to the end for me. It was a way to do my book cheaply. And I'm actually starting to get fans of the art.
What's the name of your book?
The Ends. Yeah, we have a table, by the way. You guys feel free to stop by the table, look through our books and everything.
We work very, very hard on
Any
these
more
things.
questions?